It started as a quiet Wednesday at Oakmont Middle School. The hallway smelled like floor polish and paper. Lockers stood in straight lines. The clock above the office read 1:47 p.m. Marcus Steele Davidson walked slowly down the corridor. His boots were heavy, but his steps were soft. The front office had given him a visitor badge and a polite smile. No one there knew that the man in the black leather vest had ridden with the Hells Angels for 18 years. To them, he was just another parent. In his pocket were 2 tickets to the biggest motorcycle show of the year. He had planned to surprise his 12-year-old son, Dylan, take him out early, get ice cream, watch his eyes light up the way they used to. But the closer he came to room 214, the more he heard something that made every muscle in his body go tight. A voice. Harsh, sharp, filled with mockery. Marcus slowed. He stopped beside the half-open classroom door and listened. Maybe if you spent less time daydreaming and more time paying attention, you would not be such a disappointment to everyone in this room. The words hit Marcus like a punch. He moved closer and looked through the narrow glass window. Dylan stood at the front of the class, shoulders slumped, head bowed, his hands twisted together like he was trying to hold himself in place. Coach Bradley Keir stood over him. He was tall, broad, and red in the face, the kind of man who liked to remind everyone he had once been important on a football field. Do you have anything to say for yourself, or are you just going to stand there looking pathetic? Dylan's reply was almost too soft to hear. I am sorry, I will do better. You have been saying that for weeks. Sorry does not cut it anymore. Keir turned away from Dylan and faced the class. This is what happens when you do not take your education seriously. You become a burden to everyone around you. Desks creaked. Students shifted. A girl in the second row stared down at her notebook. A boy in the front clenched his fists beneath his desk. The room was full of kids who knew this was wrong and felt too small to stop it. Marcus felt something burning in his chest. He had known his son was not himself for weeks. Late nights staring at homework, quiet dinners, forced smiles. Every time Marcus asked what was wrong, Dylan had said the same thing. I am fine, Dad, it is nothing. But this was not nothing. This was a grown man tearing down a 12-year-old child. Marcus did not think any longer. He pushed the door open and stepped into the room. 25 heads turned. The room went silent. Marcus filled the doorway, tall and calm, his leather vest marked with patches and miles of history. Coach Keir blinked, surprised. Can I help you? Marcus did not answer at once. His gaze went straight to his son. Dylan. The boy's eyes lifted, shock, relief, shame. All of it flashed across his face. Marcus walked between the desks until he stood beside him. Get your things, son. We are leaving. Dylan did not argue. His hands shook as he grabbed his notebook and stuffed it into his backpack. The zipper caught once, then closed. The class watched. No one moved. No one spoke. Coach Keir found his voice again. Excuse me. You cannot just walk in here and remove a student. There are procedures. If you have a concern, you need to schedule a meeting with the office. Marcus turned his head and looked at him. His voice stayed low. I heard enough. I saw enough. My son is done here. This is a classroom, the coach snapped. I am handling a behavioral issue. No, you are not, Marcus said. You are humiliating a child. He put a steady hand on Dylan's shoulder and guided him toward the door. You walk out that door and there will be consequences, Keir called after them. You cannot just ignore the rules. Marcus paused in the doorway. He did not raise his voice. He did not step closer. He simply looked at the man who had been shouting at his son. You are right, he said. This is not over. In the hallway, the noise of the school returned. Locker doors, distant chatter. Announcements over the intercom. Marcus felt Dylan walking beside him, small and tense, like he still feared someone would call him back. No one did. They signed out at the office. The receptionist opened her mouth to ask why, but one look at Marcus and she decided to just hand him the sheet. Minutes later, they were in the truck. The engine was off. The air was still. Dylan stared at his hands. "Dad, not yet," Marcus said gently. "We will talk at home." He started the truck and pulled out of the lot. As the school shrank in the rearview mirror, Marcus's jaw tightened. His mind was already moving. What he had heard in that classroom was not a bad day. It was a pattern. You could hear a pattern in a man's voice if you had survived enough of them. At home, Dylan sat at the kitchen table with a mug of hot chocolate. It steamed between his hands. Marcus leaned on the counter and waited. He gave his son time. Finally, Dylan spoke. "It has been like this since September." Marcus felt the words like gravel in his chest. "Tell me, son." Dylan's story came out in pieces. Sharp pieces, small comments at first, little jokes at his expense, rolling eyes when he asked a question, then louder insults, being called slow, being told he was the reason the class was behind, being told he would never be anything. "He makes me feel stupid," Dylan said. "Maybe he is right. Maybe I am wasting everyone's time." "No," Marcus said. His voice was firm, his eyes were steady. "Listen to me. You are not the problem. What he is doing is wrong." "I tried to tell Mr. Peterson," Dylan said. "He told me Coach is old school, that I am too sensitive." Marcus sat down across from his son. "You are not too sensitive. You have been strong for months. Too strong. You should not have to carry this alone." Dylan blinked hard and looked down again. "I did not want to worry you." "You are my son," Marcus said. "Worrying about you is my job. Protecting you is my job. I should have seen it sooner. That is on me. But it ends today." His phone lay on the table. He picked it up. Dylan watched him. "Who are you calling your uncles?" Marcus said. "The brothers." The phone rang once. Hammer picked up. "Yeah." Steel Marcus looked at his son, at the hurt in his eyes, at the way he still sat small in his own kitchen. "I need the brothers, Hammer," Marcus said. "All of them. Someone has been hurting my kid at school. It is time that stops." "Where and when Oakmont Middle School?" Marcus said. "Today." He ended the call. He set the phone down and met his son's eyes. "You are not going back into that classroom, Dylan. Not ever. And they are not going to ignore this anymore." He did not know yet that 97 Hell's Angels would stand with him. He only knew one thing. No one hurts my son and walks away like nothing happened. The house was quiet that evening. The kind of quiet that comes after something breaks and no one knows how to move yet. Marcus sat at the kitchen table while Dylan lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling. The boy had not turned on the TV, had not touched his phone. He just lay there, breathing slow, like he was finally allowed to rest. Dinner went untouched. After a while, Dylan spoke again. He said if I told anyone, it would just get worse. Marcus looked up. "Who said that, Coach Keir? He said teachers stick together. He said nobody would believe a kid like me over someone like him." Something dark passed through Marcus's eyes. He kept his voice calm. "Did he ever touch you?" Dylan shook his head quickly. "No, never that." Marcus nodded once. The relief was sharp, but incomplete. "Did anyone else see what he did to you all the time?" Dylan said. "I was just the only one he picked. Everyone else was scared." Marcus leaned back in his chair. He thought of the clenched fists, the eyes looking down, the silence in that room. This was bigger than one bad moment. He stood and walked into the garage, the smell of oil and metal wrapped around him. He rested a hand on his bike and breathed. Then his phone buzzed. Text from Hammer, 20 confirmed, more calling in. "What happened, man?" Marcus typed slowly. "Teacher's been tearing my kid down for months. School ignored it. I heard it myself today." A pause, then another message. "Say the word." Marcus stared at the concrete floor. "Not yet," he typed. "We stand. We do not threaten. We let the truth speak." Back in the house, Dylan had sat up. "Dad, are you mad?" Marcus stopped. "I am not mad at you. I am angry at what was done to you." "What if they hate me now at school?" Marcus sat beside him. "Listen to me. People who hurt others rely on silence. When you break that silence, it scares them. That does not mean you did something wrong." Dylan swallowed. "What if nothing changes?" "Then we make sure it does," Marcus said. That night, Marcus sent emails. One to the principal, one to the district office. He wrote clearly. He wrote calmly. He wrote facts: verbal abuse, public humiliation, patterned behavior, witnessed directly by parent. He hit send. No reply came. The next morning, Oakmont Middle School opened like any other day. Bells rang. Teachers smiled in hallways. Coach Keir walked into his classroom and joked with another teacher like nothing had happened. But outside, the parking lot felt different. At 3:30 p.m., a low rumble rolled through the street. A single motorcycle turned into the lot, chrome shining, helmet under one arm. Hammer parked near the front entrance and stood still. 2 minutes later, 3 more bikes arrived, then 5. Inside the building, heads turned toward the windows. A teacher paused mid-sentence. Students whispered. By 4 o'clock, the lot held dozens of motorcycles. Men in leather stood quietly. No shouting, no signs, just presence. Officer Martinez stepped out of the front doors. His hand rested near his radio. Marcus pulled in last. He parked and joined his brothers. 97 of them by the time the rumble finally stopped. The wind moved across the lot. Leather creaked. Chrome clicked as engines cooled. Parents exiting the school slowed. "What is this?" one asked. Marcus stepped forward. "We are here because a child was abused by a teacher and ignored by the system." A woman froze. Which teacher? The words spread faster than Marcus expected. Names, stories, tears. "My daughter cried every morning. My son begged me not to make it worse. I complained. They told me to relax. Phones came out. Someone called a reporter. When the first camera arrived, Marcus did not hide. "Why are you here?" the reporter asked. Marcus looked straight into the lens. "Because silence protects the wrong people, and today that ends." Behind him, 97 men stood quietly. Inside the building, the principal watched from her office window, face pale, phone pressed to her ear. For the first time in a long time, the school could not look away. By late afternoon, Oakmont Middle School no longer felt ordinary. The parking lot had become silent in a way that made people uneasy. 97 motorcycles stood in clean rows. 97 men stood beside them. No shouting, no threats, just stillness. Parents gathered near the sidewalk. Some held their children close. Others stared at the building like they were seeing it for the first time. Officer Martinez walked toward Marcus slowly. "Marcus," he said, "you know this is attracting attention." "That's the point," Marcus replied. "Are you planning to block dismissal? No. We are not stopping anyone. We are just here to be seen." Martinez studied the bikers, then nodded. "I figured as much." Inside the school, the final bell rang. Teachers opened their doors. Students poured into the halls. Word moved fast. "That's the teacher they're talking about. My brother had him last year. He made fun of my reading." By the time students began exiting, the stories had grown heavier. A girl with shaking hands stopped in front of Marcus. "Are you really here for us?" Marcus knelt so they were eye level. "I am here because my son was hurt, and because no kid deserves that." She nodded and hurried away. Within minutes, news vans rolled in. Cameras followed. Microphones appeared. Principal Rebecca Walters forced her way through the crowd, suit jacket tight, smile strained. "Mr. Davidson," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "This is inappropriate. You need to disperse." Marcus spoke evenly. "I filed complaints. My son did. Other parents did. Nothing happened." She glanced at the cameras. We take all concerns seriously. Then why did nothing change? Walters hesitated. Reporters leaned closer. A new voice cut in. Enough. Dr. Patricia Morales, the district superintendent, stepped forward with 2 board members behind her. She addressed the crowd. We are aware of the allegations. We are launching an immediate investigation. Parents spoke up at once. We already complained. You ignored us. My child begged me not to complain. Dr. Morales raised her hand. Coach Bradley Keir is being placed on administrative leave effective immediately. A ripple moved through the crowd. Someone cried. Someone clapped once, then stopped. Marcus did not smile. This is not about punishment, he said. It is about protection. Dr. Morales met his eyes. We will interview students, review records, take action where necessary. Marcus nodded. That is a start. Behind him, one biker rested a hand on another's shoulder. Quiet support, solid and steady. Dylan stood beside his father, wrapped in a hoodie. He watched everything with wide eyes. Dad, he whispered. Are they really listening? Marcus squeezed his shoulder. They have no choice now. Cameras flashed, phones recorded. The story spread beyond the lot and into living rooms miles away. For the first time, the truth had witnesses, and silence was no longer possible. The investigation began the next morning. Not quietly, not behind closed doors, but with phones ringing and emails flooding in from parents who had stayed silent for years. Classrooms felt different. Teachers watched their words, students watched the adults. Fear had shifted sides. Coach Bradley Keir did not return to room 214. His name was replaced on the door by a printed paper that read, Substitute. Inside the district office, interviews ran back to back. Students sat across from counselors with trembling hands and heavy stories. He called me slow. He laughed when I cried. He said I would never be anything. Each voice added weight. Each statement joined others that had been buried. 2 days in, the pattern was undeniable. 23 complaints over 4 years, all minimized, all explained away. Old school methods, tough love, misunderstandings. Marcus sat beside Dylan during his interview. He did not speak. He only listened. Let his son speak fully for the first time without fear. When Dylan finished, the counselor closed her notebook and took a breath. Thank you for trusting us, she said. What happened to you was not your fault. Dylan nodded slowly. Outside, the bikes kept returning every afternoon, not to intimidate, to remind. Parents stopped bringing their kids out the back door. They walked past the lot instead. Many nodded in quiet thanks. A week later, the district issued its findings. Coach Keir's license would be suspended pending state review. Mandatory classroom monitoring would begin. Anonymous reporting systems would be installed. Zero tolerance for intimidation or humiliation would be enforced. Paper changes, but meaningful ones. Dr. Morales addressed the board meeting live online. We failed these students. We allowed authority to go unchecked. That ends now. For Dylan, the relief came slowly. The nightmares stopped first. Then his stiffness faded. Then his laugh came back. Marcus watched the change like a miracle he did not dare rush. One evening, Dylan spoke while doing homework. Dad, other kids messaged me. They said thank you. Marcus blinked. For what? For saying something first. Marcus nodded. That is how change starts. Not with shouting, with truth. The school was quieter now, but safer. Teachers checked in, counselors visited classrooms, fear retreated, accountability stayed. The brothers stopped arriving in large numbers. They were no longer needed, but the message remained, you are not alone. Abuse does not get to hide. Power answers to truth. The system had been forced to look at itself, and it did. 6 weeks passed before Dylan stepped into a new school. Different building, different faces, same backpack. Marcus parked across the street and watched his son sit silently in the passenger seat. "You want me to walk you in?" Marcus asked. Dylan shook his head. "I can do it." Marcus nodded. He waited until Dylan reached the door and turned back once, just to check. Dylan lifted his hand and waved. Small, steady. That was enough. The change did not happen all at once. The first week, Dylan spoke little. He listened more than he talked. He watched his teachers closely, waiting for sharp words that never came. When he raised his hand, no one rolled their eyes. When he struggled, no one mocked him. His science teacher smiled. "Take your time. You are thinking the right way." Those words stayed with him. At home, Marcus noticed things shifting. Homework no longer ended in tears. Dinner conversations returned. Laughter came easy again. One night, Dylan spoke while they sat on the porch. "Dad, did I do something brave?" Marcus took a breath. "Yes, son, you did." Dylan nodded slowly. It did not feel brave. It felt scary. "That is how bravery usually feels," Marcus said. News of the story continued to spread. Parents from other districts reached out. Communities asked how to speak up without being silenced. Marcus answered when he could. We stood together. That is what mattered. The brotherhood changed too. Men who were once judged by patches now stood beside school boards and advocacy groups. They did not shout. They listened. They showed up. One afternoon, Marcus found Dylan working on a small bike in the driveway, grease on his fingers, focus in his eyes. "Want a ride when I am done?" Dylan asked. Marcus smiled. "Yeah, I do." They rode until the sun dipped low, wind against their faces, silence that felt good. As they stopped near the lake, Dylan spoke again. "I know now that silence helps the wrong people." Marcus nodded, and speaking up helps everyone else. Back at Oakmont, policies stayed in place, cameras, reporting systems, staff training. More importantly, students learned something new. Adults could be held accountable. Across 3 districts, similar changes followed. Because one boy spoke. Because one father listened. Because 97 brothers stood quietly and refused to leave. Power had shifted, not through fear, through courage. Dylan was no longer the boy who shrank in his chair. He stood taller now, and he knew this truth. His voice mattered. The story did not end when the cameras packed up. It grew. Weeks after the investigation closed, parents in other towns began asking questions. They watched the footage. They read the reports. They recognized the same warning signs in their own schools. Silence had protected the wrong people for a long time. Now, silence was breaking. Marcus never called himself a hero. When people thanked him, he always said the same thing. "I just listened to my son." Dylan heard those words often. They mattered more than Marcus knew. At his new school, Dylan joined a science club, then a bike repair group. He made friends who saw him for who he was, not for who someone said he was. One afternoon, his teacher pulled him aside. "You think deeply, Dylan. Do not ever let anyone convince you that is a weakness." Dylan carried that sentence home like something valuable. Marcus watched his son grow lighter, freer. He noticed how Dylan no longer flinched when an adult raised their voice. How he stood straighter when speaking to authority. Healing does not happen fast, but it happens when truth has room to breathe. The Brotherhood found a new role too. Hell's Angels chapters began partnering with child advocacy groups. They attended school board meetings, stood quietly behind parents, made sure voices were heard. People who once crossed the street to avoid them now nodded in respect. The message was simple. Children are not targets. Power is not permission. Community means showing up. Months later, Marcus and Dylan rode together along a trail by the lake. Autumn leaves turned beneath their tires. The sun dipped low and warm. Dylan broke the quiet. Dad, if something like that ever happens again, I know what to do. Marcus looked at him. What will you do? I will speak. And I will not think I am wrong for it. Marcus smiled. That is all any parent hopes to hear. The school systems changed. Policies stayed enforced. More students found the courage to tell their stories. All because one father trusted his instincts. All because one boy finally spoke. Justice did not arrive with anger. It arrived with presence. 97 motorcycles did not roar. They stood, and that silence said everything. Somewhere tonight, a child feels safer. Somewhere a parent pays closer attention. Somewhere a teacher thinks twice before misusing authority. Change does not always come from power. Sometimes it comes from love. Sometimes it comes from listening. Sometimes it comes from refusing to look away. Marcus never set out to shut down a school. He set out to protect his son. And in doing so, he reminded a community of something important. The smallest voices matter. And when people stand together, even the strongest systems have to listen.